We now have an unusual project tonight. Amy is going to talk about seals. I know one member of our audience had great excitement looking at seals the other day, so I look forward to hearing more about this. Thank you very much. My apologies again.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Amy Sampson, and I'm a preventive conservator here at the National Archives. I work in the collection care department here. Please bear with me because I'm full of cold today, so I haven't got my best speaking voice on. But I'm going to talk to you this afternoon about the PRO23 digitisation project and unexplored resource. So how did the project come to be? What do you do when you discover you have several thousand seal moulds sitting in your basement? Well, the smart thing to do is to find out why they're there in the first place. My investigation eventually revealed that the collection care department were responsible for the manufacture and the care of a historic collection of seal moulds which were taken from the National Archives wax seals. There are around 7,700, and I must admit counting, items, and it's believed to be the largest collection of its type in the UK. So in the collection are examples of more than 30 seal types with about 127 distinct subcategories, and you can find examples of everything from the great seals of the realm to all manner of things. We have monastic seals, we have ecclesiastical seals, we have local private and corporate seals. We have seals from all manner of other nations. This one is from Spain. We have topographical seals. I've included this one because I like the elephant. And we have equestrian seals, personal armorial seals, which is the batch that we're working on at the moment. And we have non-armorial seals. So what are seal moulds? Why do we have them? Not this. This is what they are. So why do we have them? Why has the collection care department produced this collection? So from around the end of the 19th century, we believe, they were manufactured by what was the repairing department, this is now collection care, of the former Public Record Office. And they were really produced to facilitate the production of replica seals which could then be used for study and also for sale. And this practice was continued until the early 2000s when it was eventually phased out and the moulds were packed up into drawers and they were placed in long-term storage. Though the practice of moulds is believed to have begun in the 19th century, it really reached its peak in the 20s, when the vast majority of the collection was created under the direction of Sir Hilary Jenkinson, who was then the head of the repairing department and later Deputy Keeper of Public Records. And he advocated for the manufacture of moulds so that we didn't have to keep producing the originals too frequently. And he described this as thus neutralising the worst results of any possible damage by preserving permanent moulds. So this really was achieved by using moulds to cast wax or resin replicas, and these replicas could be studied and photographed and handled by many researchers with absolutely no risk to the original, which from a preservation point of view is great. And this is a modern replica of the moulding process, basically. It was a process that was developed by staff in the repairing department, and the moulds were made themselves from very high quality, very fine dental plaster of Paris. And when a seal was moulded, particularly if it was a pendant seal and therefore still attached to its document, the whole document would be wrapped in wax paper, and then the seal would be very, very gently cleaned to take any surface dirt off using a soft brush. Jenkinson references watchmakers' brushes specifically. After that, a protective layer of wax paper, a disc would be put on the back of the seal, and then the seal itself would be pressed, as you can see here, into a large disc of plasticine. And this created a stable base from which to form the mould. The seal surface itself, to ensure that you could release the plaster, would be lubricated with a mix of olive oil and lard. I do not advocate this as a conservation process. Too much lubricant as well could also affect the quality of the mould. It could create air bubbles on the surface, and it could also create a flattening of the impression. A strip of lead foil would then be bent around the seal. What you can see here is a piece of polypropylene. It would create a wall to contain the liquid plaster, and the plaster would then be very laboriously painted onto the oiled seal surface in very thin layers, and then gradually built up, because if it was applied too quickly, if it was poured on, the plaster generates heat. I'm sure some of you are aware of this, that it could generate heat in excess of 60 degrees centigrade, which would be detrimental to wax. Once the plaster had set, the foil would be removed and the fresh mould would be left to dry in a warm room, and this would take several weeks. Once completely dry, the mould would be treated to harden it, and they would steep it in a bath of boiled linseed oil and lemon oxide, or occasionally in a solution of shellac mixed with methylated spirit, and it would then be left to dry for several days, again to ensure that it was fully dry before the moulding process began. Plaster of Paris was eventually superseded around 1966 by silicone rubber, which was produced a much crisper result than had previously been possible with plaster of Paris. This material was in use right up until the mid-90s, when the practice of moulding completely ceased, and this was due to a combination of factors: a far better understanding of the effects of the process on the wax seal, the use of unpleasant chemicals for moulding, the increasing cost of production, and a lack of demand for replicas. And we no longer use the moulds to make seal casts. But the collection of seal moulds is important for several reasons. What they continue to do is to demonstrate the breadth and the variety of the wax seals in our collections. And there are examples, as I've said, of a huge range of seal types, from great seals to armorial seals and everything in between. More importantly, many moulds contain information which has now vanished from the seals from which they were taken, either through loss or through damage, and in some cases the mould is now the only surviving evidence of a particular seal. The question now was, how could we find a way to take this collection and extract the information from it and make it useful to researchers? In 2013, several of my very lucky long-serving colleagues got to retire, and as they left the National Archives, what they took with them was a lot of their local knowledge, particularly about this collection. So discussions began around how we could retain this knowledge. What could we do to make sure that this collection didn't pass into obscurity? And it quickly became apparent, if we were going to do anything significant with it in the future, we really needed to catalogue it. Additionally, the information that we held about it was in itself in a very poor physical state. I had been handed a box with a dilapidated and falling apart ledger, mostly handwritten, very arcane system of organising the information as well. And so that was very vulnerable to loss as well. And this really led to the conclusion that we needed to find a way to preserve any and all information that we held about it in some sort of digital format. I was then asked to scope for a data retrieval project, the aim of which would be to create a useful, functional record of the resource for those that are interested in seals research. Now, my apologies, there is no way to make an Excel spreadsheet look interesting. Unfortunately, I can't show you the database in use, but this is fundamentally what it looks like. As a conservator, my interest in seals is largely, or has until now been largely limited to their materiality, and their context and their meaning are not something that I have much knowledge of. So I wanted to make certain that anything we captured, any data we recorded, would be useful. So in conjunction with records experts from C, Collections Engagement and Expertise, and colleagues from Cataloguing and Taxonomy, we designed a database. Together we looked at what information about the seals it would be useful to capture and how to ensure that it would relate directly to existing research resources at TNA, and how to produce something that would be compatible with our catalogue, with Discovery, should we find some way to assimilate the information into Discovery in the future. So the database established, the data retrieval project began, and the input work was executed by a team of 4 volunteers who recorded the mould number. So when the moulds were manufactured, they were assigned an individual number. The seal type, so the seal types we have used to categorize the seals are in line with our existing seal card index, which is up in the back room. We recorded the name of the seal owner. We recorded the date of the seal, the color of the original wax impression, its diameter, the parent document reference where we had that information, and any additional information that might be of use, so for example, membrane numbers or page numbers, things like that. So the best laid plans. As the project progressed, we discovered the ledger was not our only source of information. There were lots of other incomplete attempts to catalogue this collection. And so we went from having about 5,000 entries in the database to, as I said, about 7,700 and growing every day. What this does do is make this thus far the most comprehensive set of data about this collection, and hopefully it's going to create understanding and access where none previously existed. So how did we decide to digitise? Nothing like this had ever been attempted before. And so really once data retrieval had been completed, we sort of sat around twiddling our thumbs thinking, well, what do we do with this now? So I began to explore ideas around what to do with the collection and with this new body of information. And because it dealt with a uniquely visual collection, one possibility was to digitally image them and to present them in Discovery. Though I have to say this did seem hugely ambitious to me at the time, particularly this is not my area of professional expertise, this is not a conservation project. I then had 2 big problems I needed to resolve. Firstly, how would we image the moulds? And secondly, could it even be done? Digitization of objects and presentation and discovery had never been attempted before. We have lots of digital projects dealing with photographs and documents of flat objects, but nothing that is 3D. So I began to look into the feasibility of marrying the database and some images. I'm very lucky. Fortunately, I've been able to draw on a wealth of in-house expertise across the organisation. So I began to collaborate with colleagues in digital archiving to determine how to format metadata and how to understand what protocols should be observed to ensure compatibility with existing protocols, and to determine the availability of support going forward. Will we be able to be supported throughout this project? Colleagues in the image library and in licensing, publishing and digitization were always generous with their time, with their expertise and also access to their specialist equipment. I ran a variety of image tests to identify how to produce the best visual results. So photography, which these are examples of photography, was very quickly rejected. As you can see, the variety, this is the same mould shot using different light sources. And the moulds there's a huge range of sizes, colours, depth of impression, texture, level of damage, so forth. And this meant that producing a really good result would require continual adjustment of the camera settings, and it was therefore too labour intensive. I also looked into 3D scanning and RTI, which is reflectance transformation imaging, which were likewise rejected. So the need to retain a visual record of the entire mould really didn't seem necessary. There is no information on the sides, nothing on the base. And also these methods could be very time consuming, very costly at that time, and require a level of expertise that we really didn't have, and also money that I didn't have to spend on the project. So scanning on a simple flatbed scanner proved to be highly effective. So I did some further image tests, again with the support of digital archiving, to determine what the standard output ought to be. And this is the end result. The best result was produced when the moulds were scanned in grayscale, so we rejected colour. They were also scanned at 800 dpi, which is significantly higher as a resolution than the standard 400 dpi, which is required for the digitisation of documents. As the image has to be compressed in order to be displayed in Discovery, so we're scanning these as TIFFs, and then they're compressed into JP2s. This ensured it retained a very high level of image quality. The image was then retouched using Photoshop. And as the mould is a negative impression, the most important thing we do, the golden rule of our scanning project, is don't forget to flip the image horizontally first. Brightness and contrast were adjusted to give the best read, and any discoloration that interfered with the image has been removed. So not so much with this one, but for example, things like this that draw the eye away from the main image, we take those out. So now that the imaging method and the metadata format have been determined, I worked with digital archiving and the Discovery team to test whether the image and the metadata could be united as a single entry in Discovery. And the moulds have never been viewed or treated as public records. They are essentially a surrogate class, and as such, they were never accessioned. But as luck would have it, they had been given a series reference. So PRO23 already existed before we began. And there was a brief catalogue description that could already be found, which identified them as moulds or impressions of seals deposited for examination. So with this pre-existing manufacture number that the seals already had and the series number, creating a reference for each image was straightforward, and meant that the image itself is now the record. So we began scanning, and a small batch of images and the associated metadata were brought together in the Discovery test site, because a lot of this had been done on faith alone. We didn't really know what it was going to look like. So we had to sort of plough forward until we had something to produce at the end of it. We were able to see what this output would look like. The result far exceeded our expectations and justified, I think, the effort that had been put into the project thus far. So I now have to determine, we've got the method, everybody is in place, we know what we want to do, how are we going to deliver this output? And having worked with volunteers to build the database, it seemed logical to continue working with them on the digitisation of the collection. As I mentioned, we didn't have very much fun. It would also ensure that costs would be kept low and that we would have the time and the space to ensure that the work was of a high quality. So a team of 7 volunteers were engaged, who have undertaken all of the scanning, the retouching, the metadata creation, and the quality assurance process, which is so essential to this project. So it was in July 2017 that our first batch of 600 images went live, and so far we've scanned over 3,000 moulds, with more than 1,800 images now being available in Discovery, and we're adding to this number all the time. So what does PRO23 offer? It's a unique collection of digital images. Each mould is described in its own catalogue entry, providing as much biographical information about the original seal as possible. All of the terms used in the description are fully searchable. And this metadata that we use to create the catalogue entry is checked thoroughly throughout the process, because ensuring accuracy is absolutely at the centre of what we do. Where there's doubt about the provenance of a seal or information is entirely missing, we can refer to the original parent document. And if a detail such as ownership is still unclear, then we consult with Dr. Paul Driver, who applies his specialist knowledge of paleography, of the record types and of their format and content. And more often than not, these queries are resolved very successfully. That's not supposed to be there, that's moved since I created the PowerPoint. This is what it should be around. Apologies for that. That's a hyperlink which provides a direct link to the parent document catalogue entry, so you can view this information and you can view an image, and if you want to view the original, you can do so. That's the alongside the data is a high-resolution image, and the image viewer enables the user to expand the image or to zoom in, allowing small details such as text and heraldic devices to be viewed close up. And the images can also be downloaded as a PDF. That's what the image viewer looks like. This is also a rubber mould, so you can see the difference between the plaster ones I showed you at the beginning and the rubber one. The existing series catalogue description has been updated by Paul Driver in order to give information about the digitisation process and some historic background to the creation of the collection. And the Seals Research Guide has also been updated to reflect the availability of PRO23. So I've made this all sound terribly quick, because if I sort of sat down one day, it was all done by the end of the week. This has taken about 5 years to get to this point. The journey from the draw to discovery has had its challenges, but I've been really fortunate in my colleagues who have so readily lent their expertise, and they've helped make this happen. Describing and digitising them is a way to make this unusual resource accessible, and in keeping with Jenkinson's vision, allow the National Archives to take a more holistic approach to the preservation and access to our seals collection.
What a fascinating project. Any questions?
I've actually downloaded one of your pictures off Discovery, and they are excellent, I will say that. I spent Thursday afternoon trying to take pictures in the British Library of some of the seals. Your pictures are far better than I can. That way. But one thing from my point of view, the project is about moulds of seals. I presume in the National Archive you also have real seals. And for somebody like me, I'm trying to look at seals, meaning what you've done as moulds, what you have as original seals, what the British Library have seals. And my difficulty is trying to link them all together, because you've an index for seal moulds. The British Library have a catalogue of seals which was written in 1820. I don't know yet where your seal catalogue is for real seals. It's difficult to try and pull it all together for somebody like myself.
So one of the things that we have tried to do is to make sure all of the things at TNA do link up together, that we are sort of using all of the same terms of reference and making sure that there is a clear line between all of these different sources. So upstairs in our map room we have a paper seal card index of about 30,000 seals.
I saw that yesterday.
Indeed.
Spent 2 minutes looking at it and thought, after another job for another day.
It is available online as well as QFA1, although the backs of the cards are not scanned, which we discovered to our detriment as we started doing the scanning. The mould numbers are recorded on the backs of the cards. Where we have information about parent documents, we've included that, so that you can go back and reference the original wax seal, the wax impression. And for the most part, there are a few things that we don't have information on, but for the most part we do.
But presumably you've only got seal moulds are a very small percentage of the total seals you've got.
Absolutely, yes.
And that's the hard part. You may have imaged every one of your moulds when you completed it, but there's still an awful lot of seals then out there in the National Archive.
There are, and as you pointed out, imaging a wax seal impression is very, very difficult. And so this is one discrete project about a particular collection, but I do have colleagues who are looking forward to more sophisticated imaging methods that will involve better funding, to look at how we can 3D image wax seals. So some tests are going on at the moment, which, this was never going to be a method that was suitable for imaging originals. It's quite rudimentary, and we're dealing with what essentially is quite a flat object on its surface. So it's okay to put it onto a scanner. I wouldn't want to do that with a wax seal, so we're looking at, as I say, more sophisticated ways of doing that and really opening up that collection more, but that's very much an infancy.
But from what I've seen about what the pictures I've seen, I've downloaded, they are excellent, and I think it's a very good job you're doing. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Any more questions? Right, thank you very much indeed. It does sound a very trailblazing project, doesn't it? That sure people will be able to build on, and looking at the original documents, I guess people come the other way.